I was sitting in the living room, the TV flickering with some late-night game show I wasn't really watching. The kids were asleep upstairs. Ethan, my oldest at 12, probably dreaming about his soccer game tomorrow. Lily, 9, clutching her stuffed bear, and little Noah, barely 4, snoring softly in his crib. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that usually brought me peace after a long day at the auto shop. But tonight, that quiet felt heavy, like it was pressing down on me, whispering secrets I didn't want to hear. My wife, Emily, had told me she was spending the weekend at her friend Rachel's place again. It was the third time this month, and I hadn't thought much of it at first. Emily had always been social, the kind of woman who needed her girls' nights to unwind. I trusted her. At least, I thought I did. But lately, there were little things. Her coming home later than usual, her phone always on silent, the way she'd avoid my eyes when I asked about her day. I'd ignored them, chalking it up to stress from her job at the bakery. Now I wasn't so sure. The clock on the wall ticked past 10 when my phone buzzed on the coffee table. I glanced at the screen, an unknown number. I don't usually answer calls like that, but something made me pick up. Maybe it was the late hour, or maybe it was the nagging feeling I'd been pushing down for weeks, the one that told me something was wrong, something I couldn't ignore anymore. I pressed the phone to my ear. "Hello?" My voice was flat, tired. There was a pause on the other end, then a man's voice, low and deliberate, came through. "You know where your wife is right now?" he asked. I froze, my grip tightening on the phone, my heart starting to thud in my chest, a slow, heavy rhythm that made my throat tighten. "Who is this?" I demanded, but my voice didn't sound as steady as I wanted it to. The man ignored my question. "If you don't, you should check her location," he said, and then the line went dead. I sat there for a moment, staring at the phone in my hand, the stranger's words echoing in my head like a warning I couldn't unhear. My heart was pounding now, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. Emily and I had an app on our phones to track the kids' locations. Ethan's soccer practices and Lily's dance classes could get chaotic, and it helped us keep tabs. We'd added each other to the app years ago, just in case. I hadn't checked Emily's location in forever. I didn't think I needed to. But now, with that voice in my head, I opened the app. My thumb hovered over her name for a second, my stomach twisting with a mix of dread and curiosity, before I tapped it. The map loaded, and a little dot appeared, marking her location. She wasn't at Rachel's house, on the east side of Portland. She was downtown, at a place called the Crimson Vine, a fancy restaurant I'd never even heard of. I stared at the screen, my mind racing, trying to make sense of it. Rachel lived in a quiet suburb, not in the heart of the city. Why would Emily be there? I tried to tell myself it was nothing. Maybe Rachel had decided to treat her to a night out. But then my phone buzzed again, another message from the unknown number. This time, it was a photo. I opened it, and my stomach dropped, a wave of nausea hitting me like a punch. Emily was sitting at a candlelit table, her hand resting on a man's arm. He was leaning in close, his face partially turned, but I could see enough to know I didn't recognize him. Emily was smiling, her eyes sparkling in a way I hadn't seen in months, maybe years. On her finger, catching the light, was a ring I'd never seen before, a thin band with a small stone, nothing like the simple gold ring I'd given her when we got married. I felt the air leave my lungs, my hand starting to shake, but I didn't let myself react. Not yet. I stood up, grabbed my keys from the counter, and slipped on my jacket. The kids were asleep, and my neighbor, Mrs. Carter, was always willing to keep an eye on them if I needed to step out. I knocked on her door, my voice steady as I asked her to watch the house for an hour. She agreed, her eyes soft with concern, but I didn't explain. I couldn't. I got into my truck, the engine roaring to life as I pulled out of the driveway and headed downtown. The Crimson Vine wasn't far, maybe 20 minutes, but every second felt like an eternity, my mind replaying the photo, the way Emily's hand rested on his arm, the way she looked at him, the ring that wasn't mine. I parked a block away from the restaurant, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The place was upscale, with a sleek black awning and soft jazz music spilling out onto the street. Through the window, I could see couples at tables, laughing, clinking glasses. And there, near the back, was Emily. She was still with him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. They were sharing a dessert, their heads close together, and Emily laughed at something he said, her hand brushing his. I sat there, watching, my chest tight with a mix of rage and disbelief. The suspicion I'd been ignoring for months now a roaring fire in my gut. I wanted to storm in, to grab her by the arm and demand answers, but I didn't. I needed to know more. I needed to be sure. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the empty space where Emily should have been, the photo from the unknown number still burning in my mind. The clock on the nightstand ticked past 2 in the morning when I heard the front door creak open. Her footsteps were soft, deliberate, like she was trying not to wake the kids or me. I stayed where I was, my hands resting on my knees, my breathing steady despite the storm raging inside me. She came into the bedroom, her silhouette framed by the hallway light. She didn't notice I was awake at first, not until she flipped on the lamp and saw me sitting there, staring at her. She froze, her hand still on the switch, her eyes wide for a split second before she forced a smile, the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes, the kind that made my suspicions grow even darker. "You're up," she said, her voice too bright, too casual, like she was hiding something. She set her purse on the dresser and started taking off her earrings, like nothing was wrong. "I thought you'd be asleep by now." I didn't answer right away. I just watched her, taking in every detail, the way her hair was slightly mussed, the faint smudge of lipstick on her collar, the way her hands trembled just a little as she fumbled with her jewelry. She was wearing the same ring I'd seen in the photo, the one that wasn't mine. It glinted in the lamplight, mocking me, a silent confirmation of the betrayal I'd been trying to deny. "Where were you?" I asked, my voice flat, emotionless, but inside, my heart was pounding, my mind racing with every little clue I'd ignored over the past few months, her late nights, her secretive phone calls, the way she'd pull away when I tried to touch her. She didn't look at me, just kept fussing with her earrings, her movements too quick, too nervous. "At Rachel's," she said, too quickly, her voice a little too high-pitched. "I told you, girls' night." I stood up slowly, my boots heavy on the hardwood floor, the sound echoing in the quiet room. I took a step toward her, and she finally turned to face me, her smile faltering, her eyes darting to the side like she was looking for an escape. "Rachel's," I repeated, my tone still even, but there was an edge to it now, a coldness that made her flinch. "That's funny, because I called Rachel. She said you weren't there." Emily's face went pale, her lips parting slightly, but she recovered fast, her lips pressing into a thin line, her eyes narrowing like I'd crossed some line by checking on her. "You called Rachel?" she asked, her voice sharp now, defensive. "Why would you do that?" I took another step closer, my hands in my pockets, so she wouldn't see them clench into fists, my suspicion now a living thing, clawing at my chest. "Because I wanted to know where my wife was," I said, my voice still calm, but there was a weight to it, a quiet fury she couldn't ignore. "And since you weren't at Rachel's, I'm asking again. Where were you?" She opened her mouth, then closed it, her eyes darting around the room like she was looking for a lifeline, her hands twisting together in a way that screamed guilt. I went out with some co-workers after," she said, her words stumbling over each other, her voice shaking just enough to make me doubt every word. Rachel didn't feel like going, so I met up with a few people from the bakery. We went to a restaurant downtown. No big deal. I nodded slowly, letting her words hang in the air, watching her squirm under my gaze. A restaurant downtown, I said, my tone never wavering. Like the Crimson Vine? Her eyes widened, just for a moment, but it was enough, a crack in her facade that confirmed everything I had feared. She knew I knew. How did you? She started, but I cut her off, my voice still cold, still controlled. I saw you, I said. I saw you with him. Emily took a step back, her hand gripping the edge of the dresser, her knuckles white, her face pale as a ghost. What are you talking about? She asked, but her voice was shaking now, her confidence crumbling like a house of cards. I pulled out my phone, opened the photo from the unknown number, and held it up for her to see. Her face went white as she stared at the image, her and the man, their hands touching, her smile brighter than I'd seen in years, a smile she'd never given me. This, I said, my tone never wavering. This is what I'm talking about. She stared at the photo, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, her eyes wide with panic. James, I can explain, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, her hands trembling as she reached out, then pulled back. It's not what you think. I put the phone back in my pocket, my movements slow, deliberate, my face still blank despite the rage boiling inside me. Then explain, I said. She swallowed hard, her eyes darting around the room again, her breathing uneven. He's just a friend, she said, her words coming too fast, too desperate. His name's Mark. We used to go to college together. He was in town, and we ran into each other at the bakery a few weeks ago. He asked if I wanted to catch up, and I thought it'd be nice to have dinner. That's all. I nodded again, letting her words sink in, watching her lie to my face. A friend, I said, my voice still flat. A friend who gives you a ring. I pointed at her hand, at the thin band with the small stone, the one that wasn't mine, the one that screamed betrayal. She looked down at it, her face flushing, and quickly pulled her hand behind her back, like she could hide the evidence. It's not what you think, she said again, her voice desperate now, cracking under the weight of her own lies. It's just a gift. A friendship thing. I didn't say anything for a long moment. I just stood there, watching her squirm, watching her lies unravel, my suspicion now a certainty, a cold, hard truth I couldn't ignore. A friendship thing, I repeated, my voice still flat, but there was a bitter edge to it now, a quiet anger she couldn't miss. That's interesting. She took a step toward me, her hands reaching out like she wanted to touch me, to make me believe her, but I stepped back, keeping the distance between us, my eyes never leaving hers. James, please, she said, her voice breaking, tears welling in her eyes. You're blowing this out of proportion. It was just dinner. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was seeing her for who she really was, not my wife, not the mother of my children, but a stranger, a liar who'd been playing me for a fool. Go to bed, I said, turning away from her, my voice cold, final. We'll talk about this tomorrow. She didn't move at first, but I heard her take a shaky breath before she climbed into bed, the mattress creaking under her weight. I didn't join her. I went downstairs, back to the living room, and sat on the couch, the photo still burning in my mind, the ring on her finger a constant reminder of her betrayal. I didn't believe her story about Mark being just a friend. I didn't believe the ring was just a gift. And I didn't believe she'd run into him by accident. I pulled out my phone again and looked at the unknown number that had sent me the photo. Whoever it was, they knew something I didn't, something I needed to know. I sent a text to the number. Who are you? What do you know about my wife? I didn't expect a reply, not at this hour, but a minute later my phone buzzed. Meet me tomorrow at the diner on 5th Street. 10 a.m. I'll tell you everything. I stared at the message, my jaw tightening, my suspicion now a fire I couldn't put out. Tomorrow, I'd get answers. Tomorrow, I'd start planning. I woke up on the couch, my neck stiff from the awkward angle, the photo of Emily and Mark still haunting my thoughts. The living room was bathed in the gray light of early morning, the kind of light that makes everything look washed out, lifeless, a perfect reflection of how I felt inside. I hadn't slept much, maybe an hour or two, but my mind was sharp, focused, driven by a cold determination to uncover the truth. The text from the unknown number was still on my phone, the words burned into my memory. Meet me tomorrow at the diner on 5th Street. 10 a.m. I'll tell you everything. I checked the time. 7:30. I had a few hours to get the kids ready for the day and figure out what I was walking into, what new betrayal I'd uncover. I stood up, my joints creaking, and headed upstairs to check on them. Ethan was already awake, sitting on his bed, scrolling through his phone, his face lit by the screen. "Morning, Dad," he said, barely looking up. "Morning," I replied, my voice flat, my mind elsewhere. "Get ready for school. I'll make breakfast." He nodded, and I moved on to Lily's room. She was still asleep, her stuffed bear tucked under her chin, her breathing soft and even. I shook her gently. "Time to get up," I said. She groaned but sat up, rubbing her eyes, her hair a mess of curls. Noah was last, still snoring in his crib, his little chest rising and falling. I left him for now. He could sleep a little longer. Emily was in the kitchen when I came downstairs, standing at the counter with a mug of coffee in her hands, her back to me. She looked tired, her eyes red, her shoulders slumped, but she didn't say anything when she saw me. I didn't say anything either. I grabbed a pan, some eggs, and started cooking, the silence between us thick, heavy, suffocating. I could feel her watching me, her gaze burning into my back, but I didn't turn around. I didn't want to see her face, didn't want to see the guilt I knew was there, the lies she was still hiding. The kids came down one by one, grabbing their plates and eating quietly, their eyes darting between us. They could sense something was off, the tension in the air like a storm waiting to break, but they didn't ask. I was glad for that. I didn't have the energy to explain, didn't have the words to tell them their mother was a liar. After they finished, I drove them to school, dropping Noah off at daycare on the way. Emily stayed behind, muttering something about needing to get ready for work, her voice tight, nervous. I didn't respond. I didn't care. By the time I got to the diner on 5th Street, it was 9:50. The place was a small, greasy spoon, the kind with cracked vinyl seats and a jukebox in the corner that hadn't worked in years, the air thick with the smell of burnt coffee and frying bacon. I picked a booth near the back, where I could see the door, and ordered a black coffee. The waitress, an older woman with a tired smile and deep lines on her face, set the mug in front of me and left me alone. I sat there, my hands wrapped around the mug, the heat seeping into my palms, but I didn't drink. I just waited, my eyes on the door, my mind racing with questions. Who was this man? What did he know about Emily? And why was he helping me? At exactly 10 o'clock, the door opened, and a man walked in. He was tall, maybe in his late 30s, with a sharp jawline and a leather jacket that looked too expensive for a place like this, his movements confident, purposeful. He scanned the room, his eyes landing on me, and he walked over, sliding into the booth across from me, his expression unreadable. "You James?" he asked, his voice low, the same voice I'd heard on the phone last night, the one that had turned my world upside down. I nodded, my expression blank, my suspicion now a living thing, clawing at my insides. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice flat, but there was a weight to it, a quiet demand for answers. He leaned back, crossing his arms, his eyes studying me like he was sizing me up. "Name's Ryan," he said. "I'm a private investigator. Someone hired me to look into your wife." I felt my jaw tighten, a cold wave of anger washing over me, but I didn't let my face show anything, didn't let him see the storm inside me. "Who hired you?" I asked, my voice still steady, but my mind was racing, trying to piece it together. He shook his head, his expression firm. "Can't tell you that," he said. "Client confidentiality. But I can tell you what I found." I leaned forward slightly, my hand still on the mug, my eyes locked on his. "Go on," I said, my voice cold, expectant. Ryan reached into his jacket, pulled out a manila envelope, and slid it across the table, the sound of the paper against the formica loud in the quiet diner. "Take a look," he said, his tone matter-of-fact, but there was a glint in his eyes, like he knew what this would do to me. I opened the envelope, pulling out a stack of photos and a few printed pages, my hand steady despite the dread pooling in my gut. The first photo was the same one he'd sent me last night, Emily, and the man at the Crimson Vine, their hands touching, her smile a knife in my chest. But there were more. Emily and the same man walking into a hotel together, his hand on her lower back, her body leaning into his. Another of them in a car, her head on his shoulder, her eyes closed like she was at peace. And one of them kissing, pressed against the side of a building, her hands in his hair, his arms around her waist, their bodies so close there was no mistaking what they were to each other. I flipped through the photos, my stomach twisting, a bitter taste in my mouth, but I kept my face blank, my suspicion now a roaring fire, every image a confirmation of the betrayal I'd feared. The printed pages were bank statements, highlighted transactions showing money moving from our joint account to an account I didn't recognize, $50 here, $75 there, small amounts that added up over months. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice steady, but inside, I was screaming, my mind racing with images of Emily with this man, laughing, touching, living a life I knew nothing about. Ryan leaned forward, his elbows on the table, his voice low, almost conspiratorial. "His name's Mark Bennett," he said. "He's a lawyer, works for a big firm downtown. He and Emily went to college together. From what I've gathered, they were engaged back then, but he broke it off to study abroad. Looks like they reconnected a few months ago." I nodded, setting the photos down, my fingers lingering on the one of them kissing, the image searing itself into my memory. "How long?" I asked, my voice still flat, but there was a tremor in it now, a quiet rage I couldn't fully hide. Ryan shrugged, his expression neutral. "At least 6 months," he said. "Maybe longer. They've been careful, but not careful enough." I looked at the photos again, at the way Emily looked at Mark, the way she smiled. A smile she hadn't given me in years, a smile that made me feel like I'd been living a lie. "What else?" I asked, my voice cold, demanding. Ryan pulled out another sheet of paper, a hotel receipt, the edges slightly crumpled. "They've been meeting at the Evergreen Inn on the edge of town," he said. "Every Friday night for the past 3 months. She tells you she's at Rachel's, but she's with him." I took the receipt, my fingers tracing the date. Last Friday, the same night I'd seen her at the Crimson Vine. The receipt showed a room charge, a bottle of wine, a late checkout. I felt my jaw tighten, my suspicion now a certainty, a cold, hard truth I couldn't ignore. I looked up at Ryan, my expression still blank, but inside, I was burning, my mind racing with plans, with questions, with rage. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice steady, but there was an edge to it now, a quiet fury. He leaned back, his eyes narrowing, studying me. "Because my client wants you to know," he said. "They think you deserve the truth." I nodded slowly, tucking the photos and papers back into the envelope, my movements deliberate, controlled. "Thanks," I said, my voice flat and motionless. Ryan stood up, tossing a few bills on the table for the coffee, his movements casual, like he hadn't just handed me the end of my marriage. "If you need more, you know how to reach me," he said, then walked out, leaving me alone with my thoughts, with my evidence, with my rage. I sat there for a long time, staring at the envelope, the weight of it heavy in my hands. Emily had been lying to me for months, maybe longer, her every word a deception, her every smile a mask. She'd been with Mark, wearing his ring, spending our money on him, building a life behind my back while I took care of our kids, while I worked to keep our family together. I felt the anger building inside me, a cold, calculated rage, but I didn't let it show, didn't let it take over. I had a plan forming, a plan to make her pay, to make them both pay. I wasn't going to confront her yet. I was going to dig deeper, find every secret she was hiding, every lie she told. And when I had everything I needed, I'd make sure she regretted ever thinking she could play me for a fool. I left the diner with the envelope tucked under my arm, the weight of it heavier than it should have been, a physical reminder of the betrayal I was carrying. The photos, the hotel receipt, the bank statements, they were all pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to solve, but I had no choice, not anymore. Emily had been lying to me for months, maybe years, and I'd been too blind to see it, too trusting, too naive. I drove home, my hand steady on the wheel, my mind racing but my face blank, a mask I'd perfected over the years. I wasn't going to let her see how much this hurt, how much her betrayal had shattered me. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of knowing she'd broken me, not until I was ready to break her in return. When I got back, the house was empty. Emily had left for work, or at least that's what she wanted me to think. I didn't care where she was. I had work to do, a mission to uncover every detail of her deception, to build a case that would leave her with nothing. I went to the garage, where I kept my old laptop, the one Emily never used because she said it was too slow, her excuse always tinged with a hint of disdain. I powered it up, the fan whirring loudly as I opened a browser and started searching for Mark Bennett, my fingers steady on the keys despite the rage simmering inside me. It didn't take long to find him. He had a profile on his law firm's website, Mark Bennett, Senior Associate, specializing in corporate law. His photo showed a man with sharp features, a confident smile, and eyes that looked like they could charm anyone, the kind of man who thought he could take whatever he wanted, including my wife. I stared at the picture, memorizing his face, every line, every detail, my suspicion now a burning certainty that this was the man who'd been with Emily, the man who'd given her a ring, the man who thought he could take my life apart and walk away unscathed. I wasn't going to let that happen. I spent the next few hours digging deeper, my eyes scanning every page, every post, every detail I could find. I found Mark's social media accounts, his LinkedIn, even an old college alumni page where he and Emily were tagged in a photo from years ago. They were standing close, her arm around his waist, both of them smiling at the camera, their happiness a stark contrast to the life I thought we built together. The caption read, "Mark and Emily, the perfect couple," and I felt a bitter taste in my mouth, my suspicion growing darker, more consuming. I found more recent posts. Mark at a charity gala last month, his arm around a woman who wasn't Emily, Mark on a business trip to Seattle, his suitcase monogrammed with his initials, Mark at the Crimson Vine, the same night I'd seen him with Emily. He'd tagged the location, like he wanted the world to know where he was, his arrogance on full display. That would make things easier, I thought, my mind already working through the possibilities, the ways I could use his carelessness against him. I printed out everything I found, adding it to the envelope Brian had given me, my hand steady as I organized the evidence, each piece a nail in the coffin of Emily's lies. Then I turned my attention to our joint bank account, my suspicion driving me to dig deeper, to find every trace of her betrayal. I logged into the account, scrolling through months of statements, my eyes scanning the numbers, the dates, the transactions. There were more transfers to the same account Ryan had highlighted, small amounts at first, then larger ones. $100, $200, even $500 a few weeks ago, each one a stab in the back, a betrayal funded by the money I'd worked so hard to earn. I cross-referenced the dates with Emily's girls' nights. My suspicion confirmed as they matched perfectly. Every Friday night a lie, every dollar a piece of her secret life with Mark. She'd been using our money to fund her affair, to pay for dinners, hotel rooms, maybe even that ring on her finger, the one that mocked me every time I saw it. I felt a cold rage settle in my chest, a quiet fury that fueled my determination, but I didn't let it show, didn't let it take over. I printed the statements, adding them to my growing pile of evidence, my case against her growing stronger with every page. The kids came home from school around 3, their voices filling the house with a warmth I couldn't feel. Ethan went straight to his room, his backpack slung over one shoulder. Lily asked for a snack, her voice soft, hesitant, and Noah clung to my leg, babbling about his day at daycare, his little hands sticky with glue. I went through the motions, making peanut butter sandwiches, pouring juice, listening to their stories, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying the photos, the receipts, the lies Emily had told me. I kept thinking about her with Mark, about the life she'd been living behind my back, the life she'd chosen over me, over our family. When the kids were settled, I called my sister, Claire, my voice flat as I asked her to watch them tonight. She lived a few blocks away, and had always been good with the kids, her presence a comfort I didn't deserve. "Can you watch them tonight?" I asked, my tone emotionless, hiding the storm inside me. She didn't ask why, just said she'd be over in an hour, her voice soft, concerned. I didn't tell her what was going on. I didn't want to say it out loud yet, didn't want to admit how far Emily had gone. When Claire arrived, I grabbed my keys and headed out, my movements mechanical, my face blank. I drove to the Evergreen Inn, the hotel Ryan had mentioned, my suspicion driving me to see it for myself, to confirm what I already knew. It was a small, nondescript place on the edge of town, the kind of place you'd go if you didn't want to be seen, the kind of place where secrets were kept behind closed doors. I parked across the street and waited, my eyes on the lot, my hands gripping the steering wheel. I didn't know if Emily would be there tonight, but I had a feeling, a gut instinct that had been right too many times lately. Around 7, a black sedan pulled into the lot, the same car from Ryan's photos, the one Emily had been in with Mark. She stepped out, her hair loose, her dress tighter than anything she'd ever worn for me, the fabric clinging to her in a way that made my stomach churn. Mark got out of the driver's side, his hand on her lower back as they walked inside, his touch possessive, familiar. I watched them disappear through the glass doors, my hands tightening on the wheel, my suspicion now a roaring fire, every moment a confirmation of the life she'd been hiding. I didn't go in. I didn't need to. I had what I needed. The image of them together burned into my mind, a fuel for the revenge I was planning. I drove home, my mind working through the next steps, my suspicion driving me to dig deeper, to find every piece of evidence I could. When I got back, Claire was on the couch, watching TV, her eyes soft with concern. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice gentle, but I just nodded, my face blank, hiding the storm inside me. "Yeah," I said, my voice flat. "Just had to take care of something." She didn't push, and I was grateful for that, grateful for the silence that let me focus. I went to the garage, pulled out the envelope, and added a note to my growing file. Evergreen Inn, 7:12 p.m., black sedan, license plate XJ4-982. I wasn't done yet. I needed more. I needed to know everything, every detail of her betrayal, every lie she'd told. And when I had it all, I'd make sure Emily and Mark regretted ever crossing me, regretted ever thinking they could destroy my life and walk away. I spent the next few days watching Emily, tracking her every move, my suspicion a constant companion, a shadow that followed me everywhere. She didn't know I was onto her, and I made sure it stayed that way, keeping my routine the same to avoid raising her suspicions. I woke up early, got the kids to school, went to the auto shop, came home to make dinner, my movements mechanical, my face a mask of normalcy. But every moment I wasn't with them, I was gathering evidence, building my case against her, my suspicion driving me to uncover every detail of her deception. I bought a small GPS tracker from an electronics store downtown, a simple device the size of a quarter, the kind hunters use to track game, and slipped it into the lining of Emily's purse when she was in the shower, my hand steady despite the rage inside me. It would tell me exactly where she went, every move she made, every lie she lived. I synced it to my phone, and the first ping came that afternoon. She was at the bakery, just like she said she'd be, her lie holding for now. But by 6, she was on the move again, heading downtown, the tracker's dot moving steadily across the map. It stopped at the Crimson Vine. Again. I didn't go after her this time. I didn't need to. The tracker confirmed what I already knew. She was with Mark, living her secret life while I took care of our kids, while I kept our family together. I sat in the garage, my laptop open, the tracker app running in the background, the little dot on the map a constant reminder of her betrayal. I pulled out the envelope and went through the evidence again, adding the new location data to my notes, my hand steady as I wrote, my suspicion fueling my determination. I was building a case, piece by piece, and I wasn't going to stop until I had everything, until I had enough to destroy her. I called Ryan again, leaving a message, my voice flat, emotionless. "I need more," I said. "Find out everything you can about Mark Bennett. His work, his finances, his family. I want to know who he is." Ryan called back an hour later, his voice calm, professional. "It'll cost you," he said. $500. I didn't hesitate, didn't even blink. "Do it," I said, my tone cold, final. I had money saved, a small emergency fund Emily didn't know about, hidden in an account she couldn't touch. I'd use every penny if it meant taking her down, if it meant making her pay for what she'd done. The kids were starting to notice the tension, their innocent questions cutting deeper than I wanted to admit. Ethan asked me one morning why Mom was never home anymore, his voice soft, hesitant, his eyes searching mine for answers I couldn't give. I didn't know what to say, so I just shrugged and told him she was busy with work, my voice flat, hiding the truth. Lily started drawing pictures of our family, but Emily was always missing from them, her absence a silent accusation that made my chest ache. Noah kept asking for her at bedtime, his little voice breaking my heart, his tiny hands reaching for a mother who wasn't there. I didn't let it show, didn't let them see the pain, the rage, the suspicion that consumed me. I couldn't. I had to stay focused, had to keep going, had to find the truth. On Friday, Emily told me she was going to Rachel's again, her voice casual, her eyes avoiding mine as she lied to my face. I nodded, my face blank, and watched her leave, her purse slung over her shoulder, the tracker hidden inside. The app showed her heading straight to the Evergreen Inn, her lie exposed in real time, the dot on the map a silent confirmation of her betrayal. I waited until she was gone, then called Claire to watch the kids, my voice steady, emotionless. I drove to the hotel, parking in the same spot across the street, my eyes on the lot, my hands gripping the steering wheel. The black sedan was there, just like before, its sleek exterior a stark contrast to the rundown hotel. I watched them go inside, Mark's arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder, their intimacy a knife in my chest, my suspicion now a roaring fire, every moment a reminder of the life she'd chosen over me. I took photos with my phone, zooming in to catch every detail, the way she laughed, the way he touched her, the ring on her finger, the one that wasn't mine, the one that mocked me with every glint of light. I sat there for an hour, watching, waiting, my mind racing with plans, with possibilities. When they came out, they were holding hands, their faces flushed, their laughter echoing in the quiet night. They got into the sedan and drove off, their taillights disappearing into the darkness. I followed them, keeping my distance, my truck blending into the evening traffic. They went to a bar a few miles away, a dive called the Rusty Anchor, the kind of place where secrets were whispered over cheap beer. I parked down the street and watched them go inside, their hands still linked, their happiness a stark contrast to the life I thought we had. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. I had enough for now, enough to keep going, enough to fuel my revenge. I drove home, my mind working through the next steps, my suspicion driving me to dig deeper, to find every piece of evidence I could, to make sure they'd pay for what they'd done. Ryan came through a few days later, his call coming just as I was finishing dinner with the kids. I met him at the same diner, same booth, same black coffee I didn't drink, the routine a comfort in the chaos of my life. He slid another envelope across the table, thicker this time, the weight of it heavy with the truth I'd been seeking. "Mark Bennett," he said, his voice low, his eyes studying me. "He's got a lot to lose." I opened the envelope, pulling out a stack of documents, my hand steady despite the suspicion that had become a constant companion, a shadow I couldn't shake. Mark was married, with 2 kids of his own, a boy and a girl, both under 10, their innocent faces staring back at me from the photos Ryan had included. His wife, Laura, was a stay-at-home mom, active in the local PTA, her life a mirror of the one I thought I had with Emily. There were photos of her at school events, smiling with her kids, oblivious to what her husband was doing, her happiness a stark contrast to the betrayal I was living. Mark's law firm was prestigious, but he'd been passed over for partner twice, his ambition outstripping his talent. He was in debt, credit card bills, a second mortgage, even a loan from a shady lender downtown, the kind of lender who didn't take kindly to late payments. He was living beyond his means, trying to keep up appearances, his arrogance a weakness I could exploit. I flipped through the pages, my face blank, my suspicion driving me to absorb every detail, every piece of information that could be used against him. "What else?" I asked, my voice cold, demanding, my mind already working through the possibilities. Ryan leaned forward, his voice low, almost conspiratorial. "He's been using company funds to pay for his nights with Emily," he said, his words a bombshell that made my jaw tighten. "Small amounts, but it adds up. If his firm finds out, he's done." I nodded, tucking the information away, my suspicion now a weapon, a tool I could use to destroy him. This was good. This was leverage. I looked at the photos of Laura again, her smiling face a reminder of the life I had lost, the life Emily had thrown away. I felt a pang of something, pity, maybe, but I pushed it down, buried it deep. She wasn't my problem. Mark was. And Emily. I paid Ryan, adding his invoice to my file, and left the diner, my mind racing with plans, with possibilities, with the revenge I was building, piece by piece. I spent the next week planning, my suspicion driving me to take every precaution, to cover every angle. I opened a new bank account, one Emily couldn't access, and moved my emergency fund into it, my hand steady as I transferred the money, my face blank despite the rage inside me. I called my boss at the auto shop and asked for a few days off, my voice flat and motionless. He didn't ask why, just told me to take care of myself, his concern a distant echo I couldn't afford to hear. I started following Mark, learning his routine, my suspicion fueling my determination to know everything about him. He left his office every day at 6, stopped at a coffee shop on 7th Street, then went home to his wife and kids, unless he was meeting Emily. On those nights, he'd go straight to the Evergreen Inn or the Crimson Vine, his arrogance on full display, his carelessness a gift I'd use against him. I took more photos, more notes, building my case, my suspicion a constant companion, a fire that kept me going. I wasn't ready to strike yet. I needed more. I needed to be sure, needed to have everything in place before I made my move. I decided to confront Emily, but not the way she'd expect, not with a screaming match or a public scene. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, to see the consequences of her lies. I waited until Friday, when I knew she'd be at the Evergreen Inn with Mark, the tracker confirming her location, the dot on the map a silent accusation. I called Claire to watch the kids, my voice steady, emotionless, my face a mask of calm. I drove to the hotel, parking across the street, my eyes on the lot, my hands gripping the steering wheel. The black sedan pulled into the lot, right on schedule, Emily and Mark stepping out, their intimacy a knife in my chest. They went inside, Mark's arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder, their laughter echoing in the quiet night. I waited 10 minutes, then walked into the lobby, my boots heavy on the tiled floor, my face blank despite the rage inside me. The clerk at the desk looked up, a bored expression on her face, her eyes dull with disinterest. "I need to see the guest list," I said, my voice flat and motionless. She hesitated, her fingers hovering over the keyboard, but I slid a 50 across the counter, and she printed it out, her movements slow and mechanical. Mark Bennett, room 204. I took the stairs, my boots echoing in the empty stairwell, and found the room, my heart pounding but my face blank, my suspicion now a certainty, a cold, hard truth I was about to confront. I knocked, my knuckles sharp against the door, the sound loud in the quiet hallway. Emily opened it, her face going pale when she saw me, her eyes wide with shock, her hands trembling as she clutched the doorframe. She was in a robe, her hair messy, the ring on her finger glinting in the light, a silent reminder of her betrayal. "James," she said, her voice shaking, her eyes darting behind me like she was looking for an escape. "What are you doing here?" I didn't answer. I pushed past her, stepping into the room, my movements deliberate, controlled. Mark was on the bed, shirtless, a glass of wine in his hand, his expression smug until he saw me. He sat up, his eyes narrowing, his confidence faltering. "Who the hell are you?" he asked, his voice sharp, demanding. I looked at him, my face blank, my suspicion now a weapon, a tool I'd use to destroy him. "I'm her husband," I said, my voice cold, final. Emily grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin, her voice desperate, pleading. "James, please," she said, her voice breaking, tears welling in her eyes. "Let me explain." I shook her off, my eyes on Mark, my suspicion now a roaring fire, every moment a confirmation of the life she'd been hiding. "I know everything," I said, my voice steady, emotionless. "The dinners, the hotel rooms, the ring. I know about the money you took from our account, Emily. I know about the company funds you've been stealing, Mark." Mark stood up, his face red, his hands clenching into fists, but I could see the fear in his eyes, the realization that he'd been caught. "You don't know what you're talking about," he said, his voice shaking, his confidence crumbling. I pulled out my phone, opened the photos, and held them up, my hands steady despite the rage inside me. "I have proof," I said, my voice cold, final. Photos, bank statements, hotel receipts. I have enough to ruin you both. Emily started to cry, her hands covering her face, her sobs loud in the quiet room. James, I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking, her tears a performance I didn't believe. I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't look at her, didn't let her tears sway me. I kept my eyes on Mark, my suspicion now a weapon, a tool I'd use to destroy him. You're going to leave her, I said, my voice steady, emotionless. And you're going to tell your wife everything. If you don't, I'll send all of this to your firm. You'll lose your job, your family, everything. Mark's jaw tightened, his eyes darting to Emily, then back to me, but he didn't say anything, didn't argue. He knew I wasn't bluffing, knew I had the power to ruin him. I turned to Emily, my face still blank, my suspicion now a certainty, a cold, hard truth I couldn't ignore. We're done, I said, my voice cold, final. I'm filing for divorce. You can have the kids. I don't want them growing up with a mother like you. She sobbed harder, her hands reaching for me, but I stepped back, keeping the distance between us, my eyes never leaving hers. I walked out, leaving them in the room, their perfect little affair shattered, their lies exposed. I wasn't done yet. I had one more move to make, one more step to ensure they'd pay for what they'd done, to ensure they'd never forget the consequences of crossing me. I drove straight to my lawyer's office the next morning, my mind focused, my face blank, my suspicion now a distant memory, replaced by a cold, calculated determination to make them pay. I'd already called him the day before, setting up the appointment, my voice steady, emotionless. His name was Tom, an old friend from high school who'd gone into family law, a man I trusted to get this done. I sat across from him, the envelope of evidence on the desk between us, its contents a testament to Emily's betrayal, to Mark's arrogance. I want a divorce, I said, my voice flat, emotionless. I want full custody of the kids, and I want her to get nothing. Tom nodded, flipping through the photos and documents, his eyes scanning the evidence I'd spent weeks gathering. This is solid, he said, his voice calm, professional. With this, we can prove infidelity. She won't have a leg to stand on. I nodded, my face blank, my mind already working through the next steps, the final pieces of my revenge. Good, I said, my voice cold, final. I also want to make sure Mark Bennett pays. I'd already sent copies of the evidence to Mark's law firm, anonymously, with a note, your senior associate has been stealing company funds. Check his expenses. I knew what would happen next, had planned every detail with a precision that surprised even me. He'd be investigated, his accounts audited, his theft exposed. He'd be fired, maybe even disbarred, his career in ruins, his reputation destroyed. His wife, Laura, would leave him, taking their kids, her trust shattered by the truth of his betrayal. His life would fall apart, piece by piece, just as mine had, but I wouldn't stop there. I'd also sent a package to Laura, a smaller envelope with the photos of Mark and Emily, a note attached. Your husband has been cheating on you with my wife. You deserve to know. I didn't sign it, didn't need to. She'd know what to do, would make sure Mark paid for his betrayal, just as I was making sure Emily paid for hers. The divorce went through faster than I expected, Tom's efficiency a testament to the strength of my case. Emily didn't fight for custody. She knew she'd lose, knew the evidence I had would destroy any chance she had. She moved out, taking nothing but her clothes, her face pale, her eyes red with tears as she packed her bags, her life unraveling just as I had planned. I heard she tried to go back to Mark, but he was already gone, his career in ruins, his family broken, his life a shadow of what it had been. I'd made sure of that, had orchestrated every detail of his downfall with a cold precision that left no room for error. I'd contacted the shady lender Mark owed money to, anonymously tipping them off that he'd been fired, that he couldn't pay. I knew what they'd do, knew they'd come for him, knew he'd spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder, waiting for the consequences of his actions to catch up with him. A few months later, I was sitting in the living room with the kids, the house finally feeling like a home again. Ethan was playing a video game, his laughter filling the room. Lily was drawing, her crayons scattered across the table, and Noah was building a tower with his blocks, his little hands steady, focused. The house felt different now, lighter, the shadow of Emily's betrayal finally gone. I'd gotten a promotion at the auto shop, my hard work paying off, and I'd started dating again, a woman named Sarah, a single mom who understood what I'd been through, her kindness a balm to the wounds Emily had left. My phone buzzed, a text from Claire, her words a final confirmation of my revenge. Heard Emily's living in a motel downtown. Mark left her. She's got nothing. I read the message, my face blank, my heart steady, a quiet satisfaction settling in my chest. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Emily had made her bed, and now she was lying in it, her life in ruins, her dreams shattered, just as I had planned. I'd given her exactly what she deserved, had made sure she'd never forget the consequences of her betrayal, had ensured she'd live with the weight of her choices for the rest of her life. And Mark, he'd lost everything, his career, his family, his future, all because he thought he could take what was mine and walk away. They'd both paid, and I was finally free.